The ocean's wild beauty often unfolds in breathtaking encounters with powerful marine creatures. From graceful orcas to territorial great whites, hammerheads, reef sharks, and bull sharks, each interaction reveals a delicate balance, blending awe with caution as humans venture into their realm. Experiences with these apex predators remind us of the sea's wonder and risk, captivating us with tales of survival and instinct that deepen our respect for the vast marine world. Here are 6 unforgettable stories. Something shocking and unexpected happened at the Krasnoyarsk Marine Center, a facility renowned for its extensive collection of marine mammals, on November 9, 2024. Despite its seemingly incongruous location in the center of Siberia, Krasnoyarsk has gained recognition over the years for its remarkable animal exhibits. Moscow and St. Petersburg, 2 busy cities, were far from the center but had a devoted local and tourist population looking for unusual experiences. However, on this specific day, something rocked the institution's foundation. Elena Ivanova, a well-known trainer of marine mammals, had been employed at the facility for almost 10 years. Orca training was her specialty, and her relationship with Luna, a 6-ton female orca, was widely known and praised. Elena raised Luna from a calf, and they always seemed to have a strong bond. Luna was a beautiful black and white creature renowned for her playfulness and intelligence. She frequently shocked onlookers with her tricks. Elena committed to caring for Luna because she saw her as family, not just a magnificent predator kept in captivity. With its sleek contemporary design that contrasted with the surrounding rocky, frozen terrain, the facility was a formidable building. One of the biggest orca tanks in Russia was encircled by reinforced glass with sturdy walls to endure the animal's strong blows. The center served as a stronghold for marine life, but this particular day demonstrated that more preparation could only partially account for the erratic behavior of wild creatures. Elena was getting ready for a typical public appearance on this fateful day. A small group of people dressed in heavy coats to ward off the Siberian cold gathered in the bleachers for the show, which had been planned for weeks. Only a few dozen people, including families with children, made up the audience. This was commonplace at the Krasnoyarsk Marine Center, which was accustomed to small crowds. Elena motioned to Luna to begin the performance while standing at the edge of the tank, her breath visible in the chilly air. Luna gave her usual response. The enormous body of the orca easily sliced through the icy blue tank as it swam through the water gracefully. The routine consisted of coordinated movements with Elena's jumps and splashes. All appeared to be proceeding as planned. However, Luna's behavior changed in the middle of the performance. The onlookers first noticed slight hesitancy in her movements, changing from her typical fluid grace to something more unpredictable. Even though it wasn't immediately apparent what was wrong, Elena, who had spent years observing Luna's every action, could not deny the change. Luna's deep, dark eyes were fixed on the trainer in a way that unnerved even the most casual observer, and she appeared agitated, her swimming becoming more aggressive. Luna suddenly broke through the water, her huge body hurling fearfully into the air. She did not execute the customary trick. Instead, she crashed loudly into the water's surface, sending a wave of water over the onlookers. Despite the audience's gasp, the worst was still to come. With a startling speed, the orca swerved toward her trainer as Elena attempted to regain control of the situation and signaled for Luna to calm down. In an instant, Luna's massive body rushed upward and she slammed her tail violently, striking Elena with terrible force. The impact flung the trainer through the air, and her body hit the tank's reinforced glass. A dull thud reverberated throughout the arena, causing nausea. Elena's body went limp against the damp concrete floor as she collapsed to the ground unconscious. There was panic in the stands. Some onlookers stood stunned, unable to comprehend what they had just seen, while parents seized their kids and hurried for the doors. There was now chaos, screams, and an immediate fear for Elena's life in place of the Marine Center's once jolly atmosphere. The emergency response team, always ready but rarely called upon, jumped right in. Elena was swiftly pulled from the tank's edge and taken to the closest hospital. She had a concussion, deep bruises all over her body, and fractured ribs. She miraculously lived despite the intensity of the attack. However, compared to the physical scars, the psychological ones would probably last much longer. The Krasnoyarsk Marine Center came under scrutiny following the incident. The center was denounced by animal rights activists who demanded that Luna be released immediately and the establishment be closed. Whether Luna had been under excessive stress before the attack was the subject of investigations. According to some experts, Luna's unpredictable behavior may have resulted from her prolonged captivity and confinement to an area much smaller than the vast ocean she was supposed to live in. Staff members at the center reported concerning indicators that had gone unnoticed in the days preceding the assault. Luna had been exhibiting mild symptoms of agitation, such as refusing food, swimming in close, monotonous circles, and occasionally making innocuous vocalizations. All the trainers, including Elena, had thought it was a passing phase. They needed to be corrected. The attack rekindled the ethics controversy surrounding the captivity of orcas. Despite their size and level of care, marine biologists and animal welfare activists maintained that orcas should not be housed in tanks due to their sophisticated social structures and high level of intelligence. Once an area of pride, the Krasnoyarsk Marine Center was now dealing with a PR nightmare. Though she would eventually get better from her wounds, Elena Ivanova decided not to return to the Marine Center. Her relationship with Luna was irrevocably broken, and the encounter caused her to reevaluate her beliefs regarding her profession. She distanced herself from the public by declining to participate in interviews and provide a detailed account of the attack. Her silence was very telling. However, Luna stayed at the Krasnoyarsk Marine Center, unsure what would happen to her. While some argued that she would not survive in the open ocean after spending so many years in captivity, others called for her release back into the wild. In the meantime, the Krasnoyarsk Marine Center continued its operations, albeit with much more scrutiny than before. The events of November 9, 2024, will forever serve as a tragic reminder of the unpredictability of wild animals and the ethical complexities of keeping them in captivity. In the summer of 2004, Exmouth, a coastal town in Western Australia, was bustling with the customary influx of visitors, excited to see the well-known Ningaloo Reef. Adventurers and marine enthusiasts have long visited the coral reef, renowned for its abundant marine life and pristine waters. The reef provided an unmatched view of the underwater world and extended over 260 kilometers along the coast. But beneath all of its beauty was a growing worry: more shark sightings, especially in places considered safe for snorkelers. Mia Hernandez, an experienced snorkeler from San Diego, California, had come from around the world to see the wonders of Ningaloo. At 32, she had devoted most of her adult life to investigating underwater environments, from the warm waters of the Caribbean to the kelp forests of Monterey Bay. But she had always wanted to experience the beauty of the reefs in Western Australia. How different this trip would be was something Mia hadn't expected. The snorkeling trip started like any other. Mia had joined a small group of tourists on a guided tour led by Kieran, a local guide whose deep tan and sun-bleached hair belied years spent in the sea. Kieran had informed them of the day's schedule, which included a leisurely swim around the reef's shallow areas and a deeper dive for those with more experience. It seemed like the ideal day, with the sun high in the sky and the waters calm. Mia felt the comforting calm of the ocean as she and the group entered the water. The reef was brimming with life as sea turtles glided gracefully through the water and schools of fish darted between corals. Mia always found tranquility in these times, with the ocean's soft tides providing a pleasant diversion from the busyness of land-based life. She noticed something unusual as she became increasingly engrossed in the beauty surrounding her. About 20 meters to her left, a shadow shifted. Mia initially thought it might be a big fish or a dolphin, but as the figure became more visible, she could identify a shark's distinct silhouette. Seeing reef sharks was not unusual in these waters, but this was unique. Bigger. It wasn't by itself either. When Mia noticed that multiple sharks of considerable size were cruising the area, her heart rate increased. Their presence was unnerving, even though they weren't acting aggressively. She turned to look at Kieran and the others. Being closer to the coast, they were still blissfully ignorant and oblivious to the shark's presence. Mia moved back toward the group, trying to avoid drawing attention to herself by moving slowly and deliberately. She knew that abrupt movements could arouse the shark's unwarranted curiosity, so her training took over. She attempted to maintain her composure as she moved through the water, but concentrating was challenging due to the increasing number of sharks nearby. Although Mia had previously seen sharks, she had never seen so many of them up close. She was about to return to the group without being noticed when a bigger, more dangerous figure appeared out of the shadows. A great white shark at least 4 meters long emerged and drew attention immediately. The proximity was too close for comfort. The great white started circling Mia, its black eyes searching her with what appeared to be curiosity rather than aggression, causing her breath to catch in her throat. Although she knew the shark wasn't hunting because its movements were too deliberate and slow, the situation was still dangerous. Such encounters were described in Mia's past readings. Great white sharks were curious creatures despite their reputation as mindless predators. They would sometimes just be curious and explore things in their surroundings. Yet a great white curiosity was still terrifying. She recalled that the important thing was to stay composed and not appear like prey. It was easier said than done. She let out her breath slowly, cautious not to move abruptly. Her mind was racing with the rules she had learned over the years, not to panic or thrash. The enormous body of the shark glided through the water with ease as it circled her once and then twice. Mia's gaze remained fixed on the animal. The shark swerved closer on the third pass, cutting through the water just meters away from her with the tip of its dorsal fin. Mia floated in the water for what seemed like an eternity, her heart racing in her chest and her muscles tense. In an attempt to get the shark to stop being interested, she started to back away inch by inch. After what felt like hours but was probably just minutes, the great white swam off into the deeper waters with a final, almost contemptuous flick of its tail. The great white quickly led the smaller sharks to scatter as well. With the adrenaline still causing her body to shake, Mia inhaled deeply. She lived to tell the story of encountering one of the most dreaded predators in the ocean. She returned slowly to the group, looking for any additional sharks in the water. By the time she arrived, Kieran and the others had already noticed the far-off shapes in the water and her pale face. Acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, Kieran immediately led the group back to the boat. Once on board, Mia began to feel the full impact of her experience. Kieran listened with wonder and worry as she described the experience. Shark activity in the waters surrounding Ningaloo has increased recently, most likely due to shifting local ecosystems and fluctuating water temperatures. It served as a reminder that no one, not even seasoned snorkelers like Mia, could ever completely predict how the ocean's creatures would act. When she got back on land, Mia thought about the day. Although her respect for the sea had always existed, it had recently grown to include a deeper understanding of its unpredictable nature and the strength of the creatures that called it home. The great white encounter had shaken her and made her realize the importance of being more cautious and prepared when entering shark-prone areas. In the following days, Mia made it her goal to push for modern safety protocols in regions where shark activity was increasing. She was determined that others would only be exposed to the same risks with preparation because she knew that her near miss could have turned out differently. Mia never forgot the great white circling her in the waters off Ningaloo, even though she returned to the ocean numerous times after that day. Under the waves, there is a fine line between fascination and fear, a reminder of nature's untamed power. In the hot summer of 2008, Tom Reynolds, a 34-year-old kayak enthusiast, was getting ready for another expedition into the 10,000 Islands, a natural area in Florida. For those like Tom looking for adventure away from crowded beaches, this area just south of Naples offered a sense of seclusion spanning miles of tidal flats and inlets lined with mangroves. The region has long been renowned for its diverse range of wildlife, which includes dolphins, manatees, and numerous bird species. However, there was also a more sinister presence beneath the surface. Bull sharks, well known for their violent tendencies and ability to adapt to fresh and saltwater conditions. Although he had kayaked these waters for years without any problems, Tom was aware of this. He saw no reason to anticipate any different today. The morning started peacefully. As Tom pushed his bright blue kayak into the shallows, the sun was just beginning to rise, bathing the calm water in a warm glow. He was going to a remote cove 5 miles from the closest marina, which he had been to many times. The only sound in the silent atmosphere was the steady splashing of his paddle as it cut through the glass. Tom cherished the peace that accompanied these early mornings. It was a time for him to reconnect with nature in its purest form and escape from the daily grind. As he paddled farther into the mangrove-lined inlet, Tom observed that the water was changing. No fish darted around his kayak, and the birds above were unusually silent. At first, it was a subtle uneasiness that he made an effort to get rid of. The tide was changing, or maybe it was just the heat. The water's calmness started getting on his nerves, but he kept paddling. He then saw a shadow moving past him out of the corner of his eye. Tom initially believed it might be a big school of fish, but the shadow moved too slowly and deliberately to make it a school. His heartbeat quickened as it dawned on him that this was no fish. It was a much bigger thing. He paused his paddle, allowed the kayak to float, and looked around at the water. Even though everything seemed fine, he had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. A dorsal fin broke the surface as the shadow reappeared closer this time. Tom had seen enough documentaries to identify the sturdy, blunt-nosed silhouette as that of a bull shark. Now the shark circled him in slow, purposeful arcs, its dorsal fin slicing through the water like a knife. As Tom observed the predator inspecting his kayak, his breath caught in his throat. Given the aggressive nature of bull sharks, Tom recognized that he was in their domain. He had always been cautious not to splash or move suddenly in shark-infested areas, but now he was in the midst of a situation he had only heard about in warning stories. As the kayak began to rock a little, Tom tightened his hold on his paddle to move more slowly and deliberately. Panic would only make matters worse, he knew. The shark was testing him because it was attracted to his paddle vibrations and his strange presence in its territory. It wasn't attacking yet, but it wasn't acting passively. The shark's blunt snout circled, occasionally brushing against the kayak's underside, making Tom anxious. Carefully guiding the kayak back toward the open water, Tom started to push himself away from the shark with his paddle. Knowing that quick or jerky movements might lead to an attack, he avoided them. His mind was focused despite his racing heart. He needed to remain calm. He had limited space to move around the small inlet without coming too close to the mangrove's tangled roots, which could escape even riskier. The shark circled for a few painful minutes, its movements increasingly erratic. It caused the kayak to bump more forcefully, and Tom felt the impact echoing through the hull. Although he had read that sharks frequently use this method to test new objects, it didn't lessen the horror of the situation. He considered his options. He could try to outpace the shark, but that seemed unlikely given its speed and the fact that he was in a narrow inlet. He had the best chance if he continued to move steadily and prevented the shark from becoming more hostile. Right next to Tom's kayak, the shark's head suddenly broke through the water, its teeth shining in the early morning light. Despite his racing heart, Tom remained calm and pushed the kayak away from the predator with his paddle. In response, the shark turned sharply, causing a wave of water to splash over the kayak. Tom recoiled but held on tight. He continued to paddle, gradually getting farther away from the hostile animal. The shark started to grow disinterested after what seemed like forever. Before vanishing into the dark depths, it made one last pass beneath the kayak. Tom dared not put his paddle down. Though his arms ached from fatigue, he continued moving forward, looking for any indication that the shark might return. Though his heart was still thumping in his chest, the tension in his body started to release when he arrived at the open water beyond the inlet. Tom didn't let the full impact of what had just transpired sink in until he spotted the far-off marina. Although the shark's rough skin scraped against the kayak, leaving a small gash on his leg, Tom made it to shore unharmed and fully aware of his luck. Bull sharks were unpredictable, and this one had come dangerously close to attacking. Two other kayakers who had just arrived for their morning paddle met Tom as he pulled his kayak out of the water and arrived at the shore. He held off on telling them about the encounter, requiring time for his processing. In the weeks that followed, Tom continued to feel as though he was being watched whenever he was on the water. Although his admiration for kayaking had not diminished, he now had a greater appreciation for the ocean's unpredictability. Even though he had survived, The experience left him with a lasting reminder of how helpless and insignificant humans are compared to the most powerful creatures in nature. Every time Tom entered Florida's coastal waters after that day, he took extra care and was constantly aware of the shadows that might be hiding just below the surface. Liam Patel, a seasoned fisherman, decided to try his luck in the dangerous waters of Shark Alley once more on a foggy morning in the winter of 2009 off the southern coast of South Africa. In addition to having many great white sharks, this slender stretch of ocean between Geyser Rock and Dyer Island, close to the town of Gansby, was notorious for the diverse array of marine predators that frequented its depths. Fishermen had revered and feared these waters for generations because they knew that although they provided some of the best fishing grounds in the area, there was always a chance of running into a shark. For more than 20 years, Liam, who was currently in his mid-40s, had been fishing in these waters. Years spent fighting the sea were evident in his sun-leathered skin and weathered hands. He knew Shark Alley required a different kind of respect, but he couldn't back down from a challenge. He aimed to fill his boat with the highly sought-after catch of tuna today to beat the afternoon winds. There were only a few meters of visibility around his small fishing boat due to the heavy gray sky and the fog rolling over the water like smoke. Liam preferred working alone rather than relying on technology and gadgets, and trusted his intuition and maritime knowledge. He threw his net into the chilly, churning water, and while he waited for the telltale tug of a catch, the steady sound of the waves against the hull gave him a sense of peace. But the sea steadfastly remained empty for hours. Although lengthy waits were nothing new to Liam, the unsettling silence around him started to get on his nerves. The normally bustling water appeared abnormally still, as if the ocean were holding its breath. He pulled in some of the slack to reset his net farther out, but felt a strong pull. His heart began to race. He finally realized that it had to be a big tuna. However, he had never experienced such a force before, and started pulling in the net. The weight caused the ropes to strain, and Liam had to dig his boots into the deck to prevent them from being thrown forward. The trapped object was much bigger than a tuna. With his muscles hurting from the strain, he worked rapidly, pulling hand over hand until he saw a huge hammerhead shark tangled in the net and flailing wildly. In its struggle to break free, the shark's broad, characteristic head sliced through the water, and its strong tail slammed against the surface with enough force to send saltwater sprays over the boat. Liam muttered something. Although sharks were frequently seen in these waters, seeing one this close and so angry was completely different. Even an expert fisherman like Liam would have been uneasy due to the hammerhead's immense size, which easily exceeded 12 feet. He briefly contemplated severing the net and releasing the beast. The shark gave one last fierce thrash before he could do anything else. Liam was flung across the deck as the net jerked from his grasp due to the violent motion. The boat rocked perilously, and the unthinkable happened before he could regain his footing. Liam lost his balance and tumbled overboard into the frigid, shark-infested waters. The cold hit him like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind from his lungs. Panicked, he kicked his legs to stay afloat, his eyes darting around the murky water. The hammerhead, still partially caught in the net, thrashed nearby, creating a chaotic whirlpool of foam and spray. Liam knew he had only moments to act. The shark was likely more concerned with freeing itself than with him. But the water was its domain, not his. With a surge of adrenaline, Liam swam toward the boat, reaching for the side. His fingers brushed the hull, but the slick surface made it nearly impossible to grip it. He could feel his strength fading, the icy water sapping his energy with every second. The hammerhead had torn free of the net now, and though it was no longer directly threatening him, Liam knew that other sharks might be drawn to the commotion at any moment. Digging deep into his years of experience, Liam forced himself to remain calm. Worrying would only exacerbate the situation. He kicked hard and pulled himself halfway out of the water using the boat's ladder. His arms shook from fatigue, but he managed to pull himself up 1 inch at a time before collapsing onto the deck, gasping for breath. He shivered and lay there for several minutes gazing at the leaden sky. Only a few ragged ropes and a ripped net remained after the hammerhead vanished into the depths. Although the cold made Liam's body tremble and his muscles hurt from the struggle, he was still alive. A cursory examination showed minor cuts on his arms and legs, probably from the net or the shark's rough skin, but nothing significant. Liam couldn't help but laugh as he sat up and gazed over the fog-covered water. Even though he had always been aware of the dangers of fishing in Shark Alley, this was a near miss. The hammerhead had taught him a story he would never soon forget, and the sea had almost claimed him that day. Liam could not get the encounter out of his head in the following days. This brought home the risks that all fishermen faced, especially in areas like these. However, it also sparked new conversations about safety precautions and sustainable fishing methods within the local fishing community. The area known as Shark Alley was growing more hazardous for sharks and fishermen. Events like the one Liam had experienced were becoming more common due to overfishing and human encroachment, disrupting the ecosystem's delicate balance. Liam continued fishing, but now had a greater respect for the animals he shared the waters with. Although he was well aware of the risks that came with each sea voyage, he wouldn't trade it for anything. Shark Alley was dangerous, but it was also home. Liam realized that respect was as essential to survival as skill. The Pacific Ocean was keeping a close eye on Kaanapali Beach, located on the western shores of Maui, Hawaii, on a normal sunny afternoon in July 2002. Kaanapali, known for its golden sands and crystal-clear waters, attracts thousands of tourists yearly. Nearby, the towering West Maui Mountains loomed, casting long shadows across the beach as the afternoon sun descended. Often serene, the turquoise ocean can become dangerous due to powerful currents that lurk beneath its surface. Having spent the previous 5 years as a lifeguard at Kaanapali, Keola Kim was the most familiar with these waters. Growing up on the island, he learned to swim before he could walk, and he naturally connected with the ocean's rhythms. At 28, his bronze skin and weathered appearance revealed that he had lived his entire life by the sea. He took his work seriously because he knew of the risks frequently lurking beneath the surface, hidden from the crowds of tourists enjoying the Hawaiian sun. That afternoon, Keola sat on his lifeguard tower and looked over the horizon. Families and swimmers were crowded on the beach, and their shouts and laughter filled the air. Despite appearing calm on the surface, the shimmering appearance of the water was misleading to the untrained eye. Keola could tell things were shifting because the wind shifted slightly, and the currents strengthened. His gaze abruptly focused on a figure struggling in the surf at a distance greater than the other swimmers. A young man was hauled away from the protection of the shore and was working against the pull of a rip current. Keolas's heartbeat increased. Travelers underestimating the ocean's power was something he had witnessed previously. He quickly reached for his rescue board and ran to the water, launching onto it and paddling with strong strokes as his feet dug into the warm sand. Keola was getting closer to the struggling swimmer when he noticed something else. He saw a shadow moving from the corner of his eye beneath the water's glistening surface. Initially, the shape was faint, but as he approached the swimmer, it became more obvious. A 6-foot-long reef shark moving through the water with uncanny grace. Despite his racing heart, Keola knew better than to freak out. Because of his prior experience in the ocean, he was familiar with the characteristics of sharks. Even though reef sharks are not usually hostile toward people, their presence can still make people nervous, particularly when a rescue is underway. Keola kept focused because he knew any erratic movements might frighten the swimmer or provoke the shark. A young swimmer named Nolan struggled to keep his head above water, thrashing his arms and gasping for air, unaware of the shadow beneath him. Within seconds, Keola arrived with a rescue board, swiftly moving to reach the terrified swimmer. Keola made an instant judgment. Nolan's face was pale, his breathing was shallow, and he was exhausted. Keola motioned for him to cling to the board, but the shark, intrigued by the disturbance, passed slowly close to them before he could assist him completely. Keola knew he had to move quickly but sensibly. He started making noise with his whistle and controlled splashes of water with his arms and legs to dissuade the shark without paying too much attention to his presence. Because they frequently indicated danger or something strange, sharks, particularly reef sharks, detested loud, unpredictable noises. Keola hoped that this would be sufficient to ward it off. The shark hovered close by for a few tense moments, its sleek body slicing through the water with silent menace. Keola kept making noise while maintaining Nolan's composure. He could feel the young man's hand tightening in terror, but Keola urged him to remain motionless in a calm, steady voice. The shark finally lost interest. In the vast blue of the ocean, it vanished as it turned slowly and swam away into the deeper waters. Keola exhaled in relief but knew the rescue was not yet complete. It was his responsibility to return Nolan to shore safely. Keola guided the weary swimmer towards the shore by navigating the rescue board through the rough seas with strength and experience. Keola's resolve remained unwavering despite the powerful current's continued resistance. They approached the shore where a crowd had assembled to watch the rescue with bated breath, inch by inch. When Keola and Nolan finally arrived at the shallows, Keola gave the young man one last shove to get him onto the beach. Although the audience cheered, Keola didn't seem to notice. Now that he was lying on the sand, breathing heavily but safely, he was focused on Nolan. Although the shark encounter was no longer a threat or a direct danger, the knowledge of how close they had come to disaster persisted. Afterward, Keola reflected on the day's events while he sat on the sand and observed the waves gently lapping against the shore. It served as a reminder of the fine balance between people and the ocean's creatures. Although he knew that sharks were not the evil creatures they were frequently portrayed, this did not lessen their danger to those who dared to enter their territory. He was grateful that his quick decision had prevented what could have been a catastrophe. For Keola Kim, it was just another day on the job, a job that required courage, composure, and a keen awareness of the unpredictable forces of nature. But for Nolan and the crowd who had witnessed the rescue, it was a day they would never forget. The sun rose over Malibu, California, in the summer of 2006, bathing the famous coastline in a golden glow. Though Malibu was well known for its immaculate beaches and wealthy locals, it was also notorious for seeing sharks, especially great whites. Surfers from all over the world come to this section of the coastline because of its salty breeze and rolling waves, even though there are hidden hazards beneath the surface. Since her teens, Emily Brooks was an avid surfer who often found comfort in these waters. She felt Malibu was a second home because of its rich surfing heritage and cultural significance. From the ancient Chumash people to contemporary wave riders, the region has long been a gathering place for ocean lovers. Shark encounter stories were widespread, but Emily, like many others, couldn't help but be tempted by the thrill of surfing. Emily got to the beach shortly after dawn on a sunny and windy morning. The tide was just right and the air was clear. She greeted some people she knew well, other passionate surfers. She headed to the shoreline with her board tucked under her arm, her thoughts more on the waves than possible predators. Only the ocean could give Emily the freedom she experienced as she paddled out. She moved farther away from the coast with each wave approaching a stunning and dangerous world. She caught multiple waves, demonstrating years of practice and fluidity in her movements. Emily first realized something was wrong during one of these thrilling rides. A dark shape caught her attention as she was gliding down the face of a particularly large wave. When she saw a fin cutting through the water belonging to a great white shark, her heart skipped a beat. At once, her instincts took over. Emily knew she needed to control her emotions and not lose her cool. Abrupt movements or splashing could agitate the shark. Instead, she concentrated on staying balanced and watching the creature's movements. Curious or possibly protective, the shark started to circle her board. Emily thought about her options, her mind racing. She knew that she needed to return to shore and that any sudden action could worsen things. With each stroke, she started to paddle back slowly, deliberately, and methodically. The shark circled slowly and deliberately, occasionally getting closer as though evaluating the newcomer. As time passed, the tension increased, but Emily's determination did not waver. She recalled tales of other surfers who had encountered comparable circumstances and found courage in them. She concentrated on the rhythmic motion of her paddling, edging closer to safety despite the fear consuming her. After an eternity, the water became shallower, and she could see the sandy bottom below her board. When Emily got closer to the shore, seeing other surfers and beachgoers made her heart leap with relief. The shark veered away and vanished into the depths, seemingly content with its investigation. With adrenaline still pumping through her veins, Emily paused to regain her composure once she was on firm ground. After observing her cautious retreat, fellow surfers gathered around her, their expressions of curiosity and worry. Despite the ordeal she had just gone through, Emily's voice remained steady as she described her experience. Later that day, Emily met with representatives of the Pacific Marine Conservation Society, the Malibu Beach Patrol, and other local authorities. She told her story as a call to action and a warning. Emily pushed for improved shark monitoring tools like drones and underwater sensors to safeguard marine life and surfers better. Her encounter spurred a wider discussion regarding balancing ocean conservation and human activity. Inspired by Emily's resolve, the local community rallied behind her, pushing for increased safety measures and educational programs about shark behavior. Emily's story served as a spur for change along the Malibu coast in the following weeks. The local surfing community increased its vigilance, and new procedures were implemented. The experience left Emily with a renewed respect for the delicate balance between adventure and caution, deepening her awe for the ocean and its mysteries. Every time she paddled out, the memory of that shark's fin lingered in the back of her mind, a powerful reminder of both the thrill and the risks of her passion. Yet her love for surfing remained unshaken, if not strengthened, by the encounter. Emily's story became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the endless allure of the sea, a place where beauty and danger coexist, drawing us back time and again to test our courage and savor its timeless wild freedom.